Missouri, home to the mysterious Ozarks and the Mark Twain Forest with the Mississippi River. Missouri is a state filled with winding river valleys, caves, and caverns. It has ideal habitat for cryptids, so it's no surprise to find that this state is full of them, and they have been reported throughout modern history and even back to a time before history. My name is Jenna Bosiger, and you're watching my Cryptic Cryptids YouTube channel. And if you share in my interest in cryptids, then please subscribe and don't forget to hit the like button for this video. Thank you, I really do appreciate it. There is a large, hairy hominid creature like Bigfoot named Momo, which is short for the Missouri Monster. There's also a large, furry wolf hominid with horns, but like a dogman, named the Ozark Howler. There's also a huge bird/bat flying hominid similar to a dragon, and that creature is named the Piasa. The evidence supports the existence of these creatures because they have been documented in the area for many thousands of years. They are portrayed in the ancient petroglyphs and rock art from prehistoric times. So I'm about to take a deep dive into what the state of Missouri has been hiding. And to do this, I want to find the historical reports of modern cryptid sightings. And I want to know what kind and where. And then I want to compare this with the location of the cryptid petroglyphs and try to identify their characteristics. And I also want to search for the ancient sites from prehistoric people like the mound builders. I also search for newspaper articles from the 1800s to the early 1900s when the land in North America was first being sold to the new settlers, and they began farming and clearing the land, mining, and most importantly, digging on the land that hadn't been disturbed for thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. And during this time is when people were reporting finding giant skeletons. And basically, it was a free-for-all because there is no reward for handing in artifacts. So why would you? You just sell them on the streets. And actually, it wasn't streets back then, it was dirt roads. But nonetheless, they were all underground. It was all being sold and distributed underground. And, you know, for the public, there's not much to go on for the public because most of these artifacts were found by individuals who felt that it was on their property, and so therefore they were allowed to keep whatever they found. So when I was looking for these newspaper articles, I found this one, and it's actually about skeletons being found in Minnesota. But listen to this last sentence. It says, tourists from St. Louis secured the bones and sent them to scientists in that city. It says that they found some tourists who were going back to St. Louis. They secured the bones, gave them to these tourists, and never heard about it again. But this guy obviously didn't lock his doors at night because he is very trusting to the point of naive. So you wonder what happens to the giant bones? Stuff like this. So I didn't know anything about the state of Missouri before I started. I chose this state based on some petroglyphs that I found when I was making a video about cryptid petroglyphs in North America. I found these petroglyphs from a place called the Salt River in Missouri. I knew with these petroglyphs that there were going to be cryptids in Missouri. Based on these petroglyphs, I was right. And what's really interesting about these petroglyphs, they come from the Salt River, which is to a place called Louisiana, Missouri, along the Mississippi River, to a place where most of the Momo sightings have occurred. This place Missouri has so many cryptids, and they aren't necessarily concentrated in one place. They're at the top of the state, they're in the middle of the state, they're at the bottom of the state. I would say the most heavily active part of Missouri is going to be all along the Mississippi River. Giant bones, cryptids, ancient sites. Missouri has everything. And like I said, I was led here based off of my interpretation of some petroglyphs found in the area. And the petroglyph that I used for the title page of this video comes from the Piney River petroglyphs in southwest Illinois. Petroglyphs at the Piney Creek have a lot of similarities to the petroglyphs at Salt Creek. They're both showing some kind of dogman creature. They seem to both be showing a conflict, and they show a lot of thunderbirds. Some of the reports of the Momo say that he has a head shaped like a pumpkin. And when I was looking at the Piney Creek petroglyphs, I found this Bigfoot creature with a pumpkin-shaped head. These petroglyphs in these locations are showing a lot of cryptids. And what do we see in this petroglyph? We see what looks to be the result of the war. And you see these bodies bent over a pole. They've been killed. And it looks like they have these horns or ears, because they're looking down. So my interpretation would be that there was a war. So the Mississippian culture, the mound builders, built mounds on a huge scale. And St. Louis is the hot spot for all of this. It's very concentrated central location, Cahokia, and it just spreads out from there. What's interesting is that there were 40 or more mounds in Missouri. And then they say that there's only one left, which is not true. There's a third of a mound left. Okay, not one. The name of that mound is Sugarloaf Mound. And as you can see, a third of it was cut off on one side. Half of it they built a house on. Now they've taken the house away. And this is what they call our heritage. Interesting choice of words. This is our heritage. And the rest of it, what was that? But because they dug into these mounds, they did find some pretty amazing artifacts. And luckily, these weren't just sold underground and never shown to the public. Because it was on such a large scale, we do have evidence of Cahokia existing. Whereas a lot of these giant skeletons that have been found, it's just hearsay now at this point. There's also the Missouri Mystery Mound, which is said to be somewhere in the Mark Twain forest. And this is supposedly the place where they hid the Ark of the Covenant, which came from Ethiopia. And it's so huge, and most of it is underground. And supposedly it's in the Mark Twain forest somewhere. The third most popular cryptid in Missouri is the Piasa. And this creature has been reported since ancient times. There was a huge, either a petroglyph or pictograph of this dragon bird cryptid, huge cryptid with wings. And they wanted to do some mining in the area, so they repainted this Piasa up the river in a place called Alton. So all we have is this renditions of what it supposedly looked like because they wanted to destroy the mountain, and so they repainted it. But what's interesting is that this Pisaw has been cited in recent times, described as a Batman creature, been seen all up and down the Mississippi River from Alton all the way down to Cape Girardeau. I don't doubt that. Missouri has a huge underground. It's got so many amazing caves and caverns, and the underground is a completely different world. There are two Missouris, one above and one below. And I'm sure plenty of cryptids are taking advantage of this underground. I mean, there's caves and then there's caverns. Missouri has caverns. I did find some dates to be interesting, and based on my video that I did about the Anasazi, I just wanted to go over some of these dates. So it says that Cahokia was around from about 1050 to 1350, and at 1350 it was destroyed by fire. Chaco Canyon is said to have been around from 850, and 1250 they were ran out. By 1300 they were gone. That coincides with the end of Cahokia when it was burnt down. So, you know what else coincides with those dates is the arrival of the Native Americans to North America. I found so many newspaper clippings about giants being found. The most amazing story coming out of Missouri comes from a place called Moberly in the middle top half of the state. And in Moberly, a huge underground crystal city with artifacts and the bones of giants. On April 9th, 1885, a story in the New York Times entitled Missouri's Buried City, a strange discovery in a coal mine near Moberly. Coal miners sinking a shaft 360 feet deep broke into a cavern, revealing a wonderful buried city. Lava arches stretched across the roof of the cavern, looming over the streets of an ancient city, which are regularly laid out and enclosed by walls of stone, which is cut and dressed in a fairly good, although rude style of masonry. Workers along with Moberly City Recorder David Coates and Moberly City Marshal George Keating, they always give full names, adding to the credibility of the stories of these reports. So these guys inspected the site and found a 30 by 100 foot hall in the cavern filled with stone benches and hand tools. Further search disclosed statues and images made of a composition closely resembling bronze, lacking luster. Explorers discovered a stone fountain in a wide court still pouring perfectly pure water into its basin. Lying beside the foundation were portions of the skeleton of a human being, according to the article. Okay, the femur 4½ feet, the tibia 4 feet and 3 inches, showing that when alive the figure was 3 times the size of an ordinary man. Its skull was shattered. Bronze tools, granite hammers, metallic saws, and flint knives were scattered all around. They're not so highly polished nor accurately made as those now polished by our best mechanics, but they still show skill and evidence of an advanced civilization that are very wonderful. Wow, somebody needs to get back to Moberly, go underground into that coal mine and find out what's in there. There are those trying to say that this one is an April Fool's hoax because it was dated April 8th. First of all, it's not April 1st, it's April 8th. And second, this commotion about how this article isn't true, not a peep, not a word about the other articles coming from Missouri about giant skeletons being found. Giants have been found in Moberly, Barnard, Kimmswick, Steelville, St. Louis, St. John's, Boonville, Bluff Dwellers Cave, and the Ozarks. Wow. Let's get to this one from Barnard, Missouri, who writes to the Gazette the particulars of discovery of a giant skeleton 4 miles southwest of that place. A farmer named John W. Hannon found the bones protruding from the bank of a ravine that had been cut by the action of the rains during the past years. Mr. Hannon worked several days in unearthing the skeleton, which proved to be that of a human being whose height was 12 feet. Oh, there's more. The head through the temples was 12 inches. From the lower part of the skull at the back to the top was 15 inches, and the circumference 40 inches. The ribs were nearly 4 feet long and like the guy measured everything. You can probably do these measurements as a scientist and see if he's like making stuff up. But I have a feeling that he's telling the truth, giving his full name and everything. It says the thigh bones were 30 inches long. He goes on to give all these. I'll go on. The thigh bones were 30 inches long, the entire foot 18 inches in length. The skeleton lay on its face 20 feet below the surface of the ground, and the toes were embedded into the earth, indicating the body either fell or was placed there when the ground was soft. The left arm was passed around the back, and the hand resting on the spinal column, while the right arm was stretched out and extending in front of him. Some of the bones crumbled on the exposure to the air, but many good specimens were preserved and are now on exhibition at Barnard. Medical men are much interested. The skeleton is generally pronounced as a valuable relic of the prehistoric race. The prehistoric race of giants. Okay, Ozarks, April 25th, 1934. A large mound with 5 white oaks growing atop it blocked the front view at the farm of J.D. Crane, near Lake of the Ozarks. So after several days spent removing the trees and much of the dirt, Crane came upon broad and flat rocks. Removing the rocks, Crane was astonished to find 7 skeletons. While 6 of the skeletons were of normal size, 1 measured 8 feet 4 inches. No valuables were found with the skeletons, but 7 pieces of petrified material in the shape of human hearts were found. What? 7 pieces of petrified material in the shape of human hearts were found. God, I would love to see those. What? Crane and others dug a hole near his front porch, placed the bones in a box, and reburied them. Here's more. Springfield Daily News. Ozark giant skeletons. In 1933, the Missouri State newspaper reported a find in the small resort town of Ozarks. A local boy, Billy Hartman, climbed into the Puckett Cave near the Merrimack River in search of ancient arrowhead tips and spears that they allegedly saw there. And he found more than he wanted. He found a depression in the cave where human bones lay. The boy reported them to the adults, and when they collected the full skeleton from the bones, it turned out to be 244 centimeters long. Here's another one. An ancient Ozark dug up near Steelville. Strange discovery made by a boy looking for arrowheads gives the Missouri town an absorbing mystery to ponder. This article says, finds bones of giant race. Skeletons of prehistoric men 10 feet tall dug up in Missouri. The fossils of 3 human beings, evidently prehistoric giants, were found near Montesano, Missouri. And I found out that Montesano is now been named Kimswick. C.H. Beeler, a farmer, at the depths of 40 feet. The size of these skulls indicates that the bodies must have been at least 10 feet high, and the bones resembling those of a human skeleton seem to bear out this theory. Beeler has quite a collection of fossil relics which he has found at various times in this vicinity, which is alive with them. He is confident that he has discovered the missing link and intends to submit his finds to the professor of Washington University in St. Louis to see if they sustain his theory. Fossils of mastodons and animals extinct for centuries have been found in this vicinity by people who were plowing or digging wells. It seems to be a regular graveyard for 40 miles around for prehistoric bones, which indicate the enormous size of the animals which once roamed the land. And here we have 16 giants are dug up by workmen. Ancient tomb with 7-foot skeletons unearthed in East St. Louis. East St. Louis, Illinois, November 24th. Human bones believed to have been those of 15 mound builders were found in East St. Louis today by workmen who were digging an excavation. One skeleton was walled up in a stone tomb 8 feet high. It was that of a man apparently 7 feet tall. When the stones were removed from the skeleton, fell to pieces. Buried under the 7 feet of earth near the base of this tomb were the skeletons of 15 men, all above normal height. They were seated in a circle about the tomb where the chief had been walled up. I would love to explore the state of Missouri and the Mississippi River and the Ozarks and go on canoe rides on some of these rivers. It would be amazing. And, you know, the one thing I would be most nervous of is getting lost in Missouri. So if you're like me and you share an interest in cryptids, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the like for this video. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, bye. Thank you.